Welcome. It's Kieran Scott from Blessed Altar Zine. Today we are joined with Vito Marchese. Marchese? I've said it
Marchese. Wrong. It's all right, man.
It's okay. We'll carry on. Vito Marchese. Thank you for joining me. It's a massive pleasure. You may know him from bands like November's Doom or the Catalyst Clone. Is that right? Catalyst.
So that one's a little bit weird. It's K-less.
K-less. So I thought it was not Klingon. Pronounced.
It is Klingon. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Because I was like, I know that episode. I remember about the Emperor thing. But anyway, that's a different subject. So, okay, K-less. Okay. I was never quite sure. But yeah, so we'll start off quite simple. I won't go too divulging into your details. We'll keep it nice and surface level. So, where did your musical journey start, and which band, artist, or album inspired your creative journey?
So, man, I heard Metallica's The Black Album probably when I was like 10, 8 or 10. Yeah. And from then on, I was like, you know what? I want to play guitar in a band. Like, that's what I want to do. So that's how I started. I started playing guitar probably 13, I think, 13 or 14, something like that.
Wow.
Just kind of noodling around. Yeah. And at that time, I was mostly into like alternative music, because back in the mid-90s, that's when this all started for me, was the mid-90s. So bands like Bush and Pearl Jam, stuff like that. So I kind of, was learning those songs, some Green Day, stuff like that. And then obviously Metallica was always in my rotation, and that's how I learned how to play guitar, was just playing along to those albums, And then I kind of started taking stuff seriously when I turned around 17, 18, was practicing more. And then like literally out of the blue, when I was like 20, I got this offer to audition for November's Doom, and like the rest is history, man. That kind of started where I am today, which is great,
Yeah, I mean, you had quite a lucky break, really, because November's Doom has been a consistent band for years. Like, they've been going for 2 decades. Like, that's the one before they were Laceratory.
So they were, Laceration in like the late 80s, I think, like 89. So the early history of November's Doom, I might be fucking stuff up, because it's Paul's baby. He started this, so he would know more than I would. But yeah, it did start as Laceration, I believe, in 89. And then by like 92, they had kind of reformed into what November's Doom was at the time, which was just like a straight up Doom death metal.
Yeah. Because I found that quite fascinating, because like, were you a fan of the band beforehand, or was it just they were a new discovery?
Yeah, so I actually had bought The Knowing, probably late 90s, something like that. God, and I was like, oh man, this is great. And then I got to Welcome the Fade, and that really made me like a huge fan of the band. And then shortly after that is when I was contacted by Paul to audition, and I was like, dude, what the hell?
That's mad. It's absolutely crazy. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, we'll move swiftly on. Growing up in a grunge/industrial nu metal era, which was dominating the charts, how did that affect you as a musician when you joined November's Doom in 2002? Yeah, I've done my research.
Good. Yeah, that's accurate. So I guess what I got from the grunge and the nu metal, era or whatever, was more like the low tune guitars, which is where I really got drawn to, So back in the late 90s, early 2000s, I was always trying to tune down. And I think that kind of actually helped get me the gig in Doom, because I knew some of those, drop tuned chords. There was a couple of other guys at audition, I guess, who didn't know how to do that kind of stuff, or they didn't have an ear for it. So that, to me, that really helped me get the gig, So I'm grateful for that stuff,
Yeah, because that's why I asked the question, because I would have assumed, because you were born when, was it 1989?
I was born in 82.
82, sorry. And then then you grew up with all this like dominating the charts, and how it was just the way it was, and then all that influence starts to seep in. I mean, bands like Metallica, Megadeth, they all had a nu metal album.
Right, that's true.
Right. So like I always thought that nu metal, and you mentioned the down tuning, so thank you for that. That saves me a bit of effort. But like, I always found that to be a huge influence into Doom, which a lot of people who do Doom don't like to admit. I think that's quite cool, because then you've got the more traditional funeral Doom, which was less down-tuned, a bit more traditional, which is still great. You got your Candlemass, etc. Saint Vitus, and that stuff is not as heavy as the Doom now. So I find that personally quite fascinating. So I'm really glad you touched upon that, because that saves talking about it more. Yeah, no, that was cool. This is this one's a doozy, to try and keep it as short as possible.
Okay.
Do you think social media and the ease of access has made it better or worse for bands?
Man, that is a loaded question, huh? So short answer is I think it's been harder for bands because now anybody can start a band and put it on social media regardless of how good or bad you are. And how do you sift through all the bad ones to find that good one when you're just amassed by all this stuff, right? It's kind of overwhelming to the point. Sometimes you're like, just shut it off. I'm going to listen to the classic albums I grew up with and that's it. I don't have time to discover new bands. So in a way, it's a double-edged sword, man. It kind of hurts you, but in the other side, it's like you have to be on social media like constantly every day, multiple times a day to push your band in order to get yourself noticed. But at the same time, it's like, how much can you put in that you're not putting into other stuff in your life or growing your craft and stuff. So.
Yeah. So that's the point of contention with it really is like, is it to the point, is it worth putting your energy into? I think that was a good point you made at the end there, which is kind of my analysis of it. If it's worth your time and you have the time, spare time to push into the social media, which I do, which is why I do it. But a lot of people don't have that. They could have been, perfecting bits of their shortfalls in their music, which could give them that advantage, which would then give them the advantageous notice rather than the social media aspect. See, end of the day, great records stand out on their own. You don't need the best social media marketing campaign. For example, the band Clouds, right? They don't care about social media stuff. They're not on Spotify, et cetera, and yet they're quite one of the most reputable doom bands. So it's quite interesting how that works. Like, I think there's no real answer, as you were saying. Like, there's a huge modicum of bands that are just going, listen to me, listen to me, listen to me, listen to me, and then you're just like,
yeah,
sound like yeah, right. You're right. You're absolutely. I think you're spot on with that. Actually, I'll give. Yeah, fair play. That was a good answer. Enjoyed that.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I still think word of mouth is the best. I was going to say, I think word of mouth is still the best form of, advertising you can have. Is you have a friend, they're going to like something like this, you just give it to them. They don't have to go through a bunch of bands to find it. You know what they like, you give it to them. That's it.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of people misunderstand like word of mouth for kind of like nepotism. It's known as musical nepotism. It's like everyone knows each other, so they're doing each other's favors. I'm like, no, it's not quite that simple. For example, like my band got some good gigs with like bands like Broken Hope, not because we know them. It's because the promoter was told about us and he was like, oh, what about these guys? And we happened to get it. That was it. But everyone was like, oh, you bought onto it. And I'm like, no, we didn't. But like, we just got lucky. That was it. That's all it is. But yeah. I digress. So we'll go on to the next part. So releasing Nephilim Grove pre-COVID, how did it affect the band and you personally post-release?
Oh, man. So, so it's the November's Doom curse, man. I'm going to tell you. Because we had like all our cards in a row. We had like a full deck ready to go, and then COVID hit. We had just signed to a new record label, Prophecy Productions out of Germany. We just released this album, which we felt super strongly about, and we thought it was our best work. I know all bands say that, but seriously, we
agree.
Think that. And
honestly.
Thank you. And we had a first time Australia tour booked. We had a bunch of these things that the record label wanted us to do, and then 5-6 months, something like that later, COVID hit, and then everything has been shut down since then. It was like, dude. And I know like all bands are affected, So it sucks for everybody. It's terrible.
Yeah, because I'm like with the new record, as I agreed with you completely. I thought it was the best work, like by far. Like the other records are fantastic, but for example, like in the new album, is it Adagio? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes.
Adagio, yeah. That song blew my head off. Like, I was enjoying all of the record. I was like, oh, wow, this is amazing. I really enjoyed that. But then when it hit to that point, I was like, wow. But yeah, so just thought I'd feed you that back. I thought that was incredible songwriting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite tracks on the album, I think, is Adagio. I think it's actually one of the best songs our band has.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, it was next level for me because that when I heard that, I was like, oh, wow. And I was like, I've seen what your tour dates were, and I was like, God damn, I'd love to see if I can go see them. But yeah, obviously COVID. Do you think that it's going to affect you moving forward, like post-COVID. I should do that whenever that happens with regards to touring, because a lot of bands suffered a lot of damages. Me personally as well. We had the same situation. We released an album in November 2019, and then we couldn't tour it. So it's one of those experiences that really disheartens you, and it can damage you permanently. Like I've known bands that have just quit straight away because of it. So do you think post-COVID
I've seen
guys will be back up to normal, or will there be some reservation?
I honestly don't know if anything is going to open up until next year for anybody. That's my personal take on it. So, and then even when things do open up, venues are going to be struggling to make money back. So they might not offer every show that they can. They might only go for the big bands that they know they're going to make money on. So if you're a smaller tier band, who knows when you're going to be able to get in there and get those gigs that you were used to. So honestly, I think what's going to happen is, we're obviously not going to do anything this year. As far as festivals, who knows what's going to happen next year, but we still have a new album to promote, and hopefully we can do that before we release another album, when this one we still have, and we haven't really done much with it because of COVID. So I think it's going to take a couple years for everybody to get back on track to how things were, man. It's unfortunate, but I think that's how it's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that, you get given the hand, you've just got to play it, and that's literally the same for everybody. Okay, we'll move on. So this is a good one. I actually quite enjoyed writing this one. So where did the inspiration for making tab books come about? I think that was very interesting when you started doing guitar tab books. And I remember when you first did it, and I was like, that's interesting. And then as it progressed and progressed, I noticed it really starting to take off. People were so interested in it. And I think that you may have started, in my opinion, a business. We'll find out now.
Yeah, so I've been obsessed with guitar tabs since I first started learning guitar. I mean, that's how I started learning guitar, is probably, sure you did, or most other guitar players did, is we got tabs on ultimateguitar.com or wherever, Tab Crawler or whatever it was back in the 90s. So I always wanted to have a tab book of my own band's music because I had all these other bands that I looked up to, and they had tab books, and I thought, man, that's so cool. I want to have that, So it was more of like just a personal thing I wanted to do. Then I was like, you know what? I bet other bands want that as well. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try and start a tab book publishing business and see what happens. And so far we've released, a few of the November's Doom books. My good buddy Dimitri, who now lives in Portugal, but he was in Brazil. He's got a death metal band called Mirkan. I did a tab book for him. I'm trying to find other bands that would like tab books and kind of do that for them. So yeah, that's kind of how it started for me.
I think it's a really cool idea. Like I don't think I've seen anyone, do it in an independent standpoint, because normally like big labels, they would just have tab books as part of the merchandise. But it's interesting to see someone who wants to support the more underground bands doing that. I do have a second part to the question as well, actually. I just thought of it now. Has it affected your take on music writing when you have to look at it so analytically? So when you see things in a tab book and then also you transpose them, does that change the way that you look at the music, or is it for you just par for course?
No, it doesn't really affect me that way. It's funny though, whenever we write music in November's Doom, I always make the tabs for the songs while we're writing it so I can give it to the other guys so they remember how to do stuff, or just for my own memory so I know, hey, Larry, I don't remember how you're going to play that, so let me tab it out, then I'll always have that. Or our bass player Mike likes us to have the completed tab for him, and he'll practice along to that before we go to the studio and all that. So they always go hand in hand with me, but I don't let it like affect my writing per se. Like, I'm going to write it this way because it's going to look cool in the tab book or that kind of thing,
That's really interesting. Like I found that quite fascinating when you first came out with that concept. So I'm glad to see it come to fruition.
Thank you.
Okay, so this was relating obviously to an earlier mini conversation we had. So the inspiration for Carless Clone, can't even say it now. As it was a clone, is it Kalis? That's the one, Kalis. As it was a clone of the first Klingon emperor. Yes. I'm very curious to hear the story behind it. Honestly, I'm really, really intrigued.
So, I've been into Star Trek since I was a kid. And I've always loved the Klingon culture, and just the idea of a Klingon was always cool to me. And just this, when I saw that episode with Kalis, I was like, this is a really cool story, man. These Klingons are going to this planet to await a vision of Kalis to try to lead them, to be better Klingons and stuff. And I just thought that was a cool idea. And then I just needed a name for my band. And I was like, well, this sounds interesting. And when you hear it, you don't really think, oh, well, that's a death metal band or that's a pop band. I don't know. To me, it was kind of ambiguous as to what the band would sound like. So that's kind of why I went with it,
It's I thought it was a really cool idea because I don't really see much Star Trek references in metal. I rarely, maybe some tech death bands maybe or something, but I've never really seen it as a commonplace thing. Is it always going to be an instrumental project or are you planning on anything new or exciting?
I've always wanted that to be an instrumental project because pretty much, I've been in other bands besides November's Doom and they've always had vocals, which is great, but sometimes I want to do music stuff that doesn't have to rely on the vocals to portray a meaning of a song or an emotion. So it was more of a challenge to be like, hey, can I write an actual piece of music that stands alone that can convey an emotion to you where you're not listening to the words that triggers that emotion, So that was kind of the basic idea of that. And with Kalis Clone, if it's instrumental, I don't have to really worry about, well, this guitar chord pattern isn't going to fit the vocal melody that you wrote or something like that. So it's more open and free that I can do whatever I kind of want with that project. So it's going to stay instrumental,
Yeah, that sounds fascinating to be fair. And I think, again, going back to, as you said, like you're very, I'd say you're very critical when you're writing. You're very precise. You like things to be how they are. And with the tabs, for example, is testament to that. I think with instrumental, it works well for you because then, as you were saying about allowing it to be emotional, I think it would allow you to be more expressive than you can be in November's Doom. And I find that probably the most interesting part. I'm going to be completely transparent. I haven't actually heard anything from Kalis Clone yet. So I'm probably going to do that after this because that sounds really fascinating. Because music can have incredible depth and emotion and movement to it. And as you were saying, vocals can sometimes steal the limelight. So I think that, that's really struck me. Honestly, that's a really good point. No, man, that's really cool. That was a great answer. Thank you. Yeah. We'll finish up with this. This is quite a fun one. So here's an opportunity for you to give any shout outs as well to any bands that you are listening to, any underground bands that you like, any people in your local scene. I said, is there any new favorite discoveries you have in that regard?
Yeah, we've got, there's so many Chicago bands. I don't even know where to start.
Well, we just try like top 5 or something to make it easier on you.
So I've got a couple friends that are in a band called Varaha. They do sort of like atmospheric doom black metal thing, which is really great. I'm actually editing a live show for a band called Dysphoria from Chicago. It's got a couple of my buddies in that. They're more of a straight ahead, kind of old school death metal type of band. My buddies in Sacred Dawn, they're more of like a progressive power metal band. They're going into the studio pretty soon, I believe, to record a new album. As far as like, more mainstreamish type of bands, like I just got the new Evergrey album the other day, which is fucking fantastic. Evergrey is like one of my favorite bands. I think pretty much everything they release is amazing. Okay. So I've been spinning that lately.
Okay.
Yeah. The new Chevelle that just came out. Well, it's coming out next week, I believe, but the couple tracks they released so far have been awesome. So I don't like strictly listen to just, metal or the extreme metal, whatever you want to call it. I'm actually more into like alternative hard rock metal stuff like Chevelle, Breaking Benjamin, Seven Dust, as well as the, the extreme stuff as well. So,
Oh, that's cool, man. I mean, like, it's good to give because when I see a lot of interviews, they're always like, "Oh, what's your favorite album?" And it's always going to be something classic. So it's always good to ask, who do you want to rep around the local scenes. I'll be put all those bands you just mentioned in the description of the video as well, so people can go check them out. So that'd be really cool. Cool. Yeah, I also check out a few of them myself. I always like new music, and that probably can go on my personal channel. But yeah, honestly, Vito, it's been a pleasure having you with us. I appreciate having the patience to sit here and listen to me talk.
No problem, Kieran. It was awesome.
But don't worry. I hope all the best post-COVID for November's Doom, and hopefully we will see you around on tour somewhere in the UK, hopefully soon.
You too, man. Yeah, we've been itching to get to the UK. We went there once, and then the promoter skipped town with all the ticket money and locked the doors, so we couldn't put on a show. So we haven't been back since.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, right. I didn't expect that. Okay, but trust me, it's better here now. I'm sorry that happened to you. That sucks, man. Oh, wow. I mean, you're going to get bad people anywhere you go. It just happens to be. Yeah, honestly, dude, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure from me. And I hope we'll see you guys around.
All right, Kieran. Have a good day, dude. I'll see you later.
Yeah, you too, man.